Good evening to one and all, and welcome to the 11th episode of the PGC Weekly Podcast. I'm your host, Saurabh Kaura, and I'm a coursework officer on the Postgraduate Council. The Postgraduate Council is a student body that represents, supports, and advocates all the postgraduate students. So, if you have any questions or concerns, please do reach out to us. I would like to start the podcast series by acknowledging and paying my respects to the Bidjigal and Gadigal peoples, the traditional custodians of the lands where each of our UNSW campuses are located, and all the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, elders past, present, and emerging, and their communities who have shared and practiced their teachings over thousands of years. We recognize the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples' ongoing leadership and contributions, including to education, business, and industry. Today, we have got Bridey Martin as our guest speaker. Bridey is one of the student support advisors within the Student Life Division at UNSW. She has been working at the university now for 2.5 years with the Student Support and Success team by providing a range of support to assist the students who might be struggling to juggle life's many challenges while they're completing their university studies. So let me just remind you again that this podcast is not just about Bridey and myself, but it is for everyone who has joined us through Zoom or Facebook Live, or maybe listening to us later on the YouTube channels. So feel free to raise any questions that you have. So the topic for this podcast episode is the need to know about university life. And when I was thinking about this topic, I had a discussion with Bridey, and we thought that, this can be a great podcast at this point of time. During COVID-19, the students are already feeling anxious and have got several questions which might be directed to the university student advisors. So I thought that this podcast episode by the PGC could be a good platform to look at some frequently asked questions by the students. And we felt it might be good to go over some of the most basic questions that we often receive from students who are doing a postgraduate course or probably an undergraduate course at UNSW. To start off, would you like to give a brief introduction, Bridey, in the Student Support Service and its focus on the early intervention during the university period of a student life?
Thank you, Saurabh, and I really wanted to welcome everyone that's joining us. I know it's quite late on a Friday. You're all probably feeling very exhausted from such a busy week. I know that we've had an incredibly busy week. But yeah, I think Saurabh's brought out a really good point that when we start to get to the pointier end of the term, there starts to be a lot of questions raised at the support service, particularly around concerns about how you're completing or, how you're traveling in the program that you're in. And there's also obviously a lot of questions around, when should I drop, or all of these questions about how to get through. And so, yeah, Saurabh and I had a bit of a chat, and I thought it might be a nice idea to talk about some of those basic things that a lot of students, even though they are in a postgrad degree, may not have necessarily been aware of, because UNSW might be different to their original university that they studied their undergrad at. So, I thought I would just kind of run through some of the basics, such as, everyone might have heard of census date. They may have heard of other days where there's academic withdrawals that you can make from your classes. There's also other dates which are relevant more to students that are onshore as opposed to offshore students. International students obviously have a range of different scenarios that may implicate their studying at UNSW, and that takes into consideration both students that are in Australia and offshore. So obviously, one of the days that is or should be in everyone's calendar, I'm sure, but I can assure you that there are plenty of students that turn up to the service or call or check into the service who haven't been aware of census date. Census date is really important for a number of reasons. The obvious reason is, of course, that students are academically and financially liable for the courses that they enroll in. And That's why the university arranges this particular date where students must withdraw before the date. Otherwise, they will have to pay for the course. And they will also, if they withdraw after the date, they may have other ramifications. So census date is something always really important. It comes around very quickly. It's generally around the 4th week in the teaching term. There's often plenty of websites, both on the ARC website and the UNSW webpage, that offer a whole list of dates that are important, but census date is a really important one. And I do encourage you guys to put that in your phone as a reminder if you're uncertain, because not only does it have ramifications for financial and academic, but it is a good time to start thinking about, how am I coping? Okay, so how am I coping with the course load? Is there questions that are coming up for me that aren't things that I'm feeling comfortable with? So a lot of students, by about week 4, the terms are such short terms, by week 4, you should start to be getting a feeling about how you're traveling and what the course is teaching you and whether you're feeling comfortable continuing in the course. So again, I want to be really cautious that obviously for international students, there may be some implications for withdrawing from your course. And so it's important to make sure that you check with the student support service or an academic advisor from your faculty about the implications for your program and also for your visa and your COE. So census date's really important. The other dates are the date to academically withdraw without academic penalty. Okay, so that usually occurs on the last day of the teaching period. And that date's important because academic withdrawal means that you don't receive a fail grade on your transcript. Again, please be cautious if you're an international student. Withdrawing from subjects can have implications for your continuing study and for your visa and COE. So there's things to always keep in mind, but for domestic students, these dates are something definitely to keep in the calendar. Okay, another important date is to be aware of when you have to enroll and pay for courses. Okay, so, at the beginning of next term, for example, there is a deadline to be enrolled in your or registered in classes. And if you haven't yet done that, then the university can administratively withdraw you from courses. So it's important to go to the website and keep those dates written down so that you're really across everything that's going on at the uni. But yeah, Saurabh, I'm sure there's been students that have come to you before who have said, I've left it too late. There's a date that's gone past and I don't know what to do. Do you often find that, Saurabh?
Absolutely. I think there are students who miss the census date and then they have to pay the penalties and face the rewards, face the penalties because they generally forget about those dates. And if they forget about those dates and they have to withdraw, then, a lot of them are facing those charges. But I think you have answered my second question as well, which was related to the key dates of importance on the UNSW calendar. Probably, would you like to touch upon this fact is that what is academic stand-in and who should I see if my academic standing changes?
Yeah, great. So academic standing is a policy that the university has in place to ensure students, number one, really importantly, get support that they need early on. So that brings to the first question about early intervention, right? The university wants to make sure that if you are struggling to pass your courses, there is notifications in the system that let the uni know, hey, this student hasn't passed and what kinds of supports might they need. So if you do get your release of results and you find out that you haven't done so well, it's important just to remember that there are plenty of people to support you and lots of questions that you might have which can be answered by the student support service or a range of other services at the university. But if you do get that email notification that says that your academic standing has dropped from good standing, the first thing that it's going to ask you to do will be to book an appointment with your faculty academic advisor. And a lot of people do ask us, what's that appointment for? Well, it's a really important one because you'll get to meet with your academic advisor from the faculty and talk about what were some of the struggles that you were having. And so they've got a number of levels put in place, academic risk level 1 and 2, and so on, which assist students to get support from the person in the faculty that's assigned to help you to talk through some of those struggles. If those students don't attend those appointments, things can get a little bit difficult later on. If they've had multiple fails and they haven't spoken to the faculty, then it can be sometimes a bit of a concern if they've really dropped to what we call eventually suspension. But that takes a long time to get there. And students would have to have failed multiple terms. But for postgrad students, it can be also earlier on in the process. So there is limitations for you guys. The faculty really does want to make sure that you're not failing courses. And so those academic standing changes will happen a lot earlier for you guys. So you may, if you fail a course, receive an email to say that your standing has changed. And the first thing you should do is go to the link in the email and to book an appointment to talk with faculty. Now, what happens then? Well, they might refer you to our service to talk about things like time management. Are you struggling with things going on at home? Are there difficult things going on that might be impacting your study or things that are causing some stress? Those kinds of things are all the things that we see at the support service. And we often will point you in the right direction if we think you need extra support in one way or another. So, it's really important that you talk to someone if your standing has changed. And if you haven't passed courses, and obviously if you're an international student, that may have implications for your visa and your COE. I want to reassure everyone that it's really common to not always pass courses and that it's okay, but it is important to check and reach out to someone at the university to talk about what's going on so we can come up with a plan forward. So that's really what we talk about when we say early intervention. We don't want anyone to fall between the cracks, and we want to make sure that if you're not certain about something, come and talk to us, and we will try to work through all the different little parts of what's going on to see if there's something that can be done. And
Sure.
do you want to ask any other questions about academic standing, Saurabh?
Absolutely. I can also come back to academic standing. But there is another question, Bridey, which is related to the reduced study load. A lot of the students who might be facing financial constraints at this point of time might want to reduce their study load, or there can be several other reasons for that. There was a concern coming from a student, and I'll just quote his concern as it is. So he sent me his concern on WhatsApp, and his concern was, I have enrolled for 2 courses for term 3 and was issued a new COE when I requested for one. But the next day I received an email stating that my COE is cancelled. I have to apply for a study load for which I must require a new COE and date. So what shall I do? And I'm waiting for a new COE. Without that, I cannot apply for a study load if I'm not wrong. So when you fill the form, they generally ask you for COE and date. So what should I do?
Okay, so it sounds like there's quite a few components to that question. I will just bring about, I suppose, one element of reducing the study load. I think that question would be good if we could get that written down, and we may be able to check in with the compliance team about exactly the situation. So I won't go to the specifics, but I will talk about reduced study load and the point you brought about financial pressure. So at the moment, obviously, there is a lot of concerns for students around financial stress, and particularly if it is an issue coming from family, perhaps having issues with tuition fees. So if students do find that COVID-19 has impacted their financial situation, it is important that they reach out. It would be good potentially to talk to one of the student support advisors before they submit their application. But generally, if it is COVID related, then they can submit a reduced study load application under a COVID-19 reason, or otherwise under compassionate and compelling reasons. But the website lists a whole range of the different ways that students can apply, but they should really be doing this before census date. Now, yes, reducing your study load does mean that you need to have an academic plan, a study plan laid out for what does it mean if I do reduce this study load, and what will the implications be for how long I need to continue to study for. So it means that once they have that study plan laid out, and that may be, again, something to talk to an academic advisor to get a very clear plan. But if they are able to do that study plan themselves, then they will be able to submit that reduced study load application. Now, in terms of COE, yes, the university will issue a new COE once you have applied for a extension to your COE. But if your COE, so COEs have to be issued once a student is enrolled. If they've returned from study, like a program leave, they've got to be enrolled before they can apply for a new COE. And they also have to, with their COE applications, they do need to apply in the period or the term or so before their visa is due to expire, in the term before. So the reason that the university is processing so many COEs at the moment is because of what's happened with COVID. So there are lots of difficulties for many students, and there is sometimes a backlog. We do often have to apologise to students that waiting times will increase in a period like this, like a pandemic, where there's lots of students all over the place in other parts of the world that have lots of issues going on. So the particular question that the student raised, I would really love to be able to answer it. I think if they could give that to you, Saurabh, in writing. It's a bit difficult to do it without seeing them, but definitely something that I'd be happy to look into potentially first thing when we get back on Monday. Yeah.
Sure. I have already received that in writing. So what I will do is probably I'll pass it on to you on Teams.
Yeah, wonderful.
Okay. So continuing with this question of COE and visa extension, a lot of international students also have this query with respect to COE as to how can they extend their COE and when should they do that? And once they do that, how can they extend their visa? This is a very common query for people who are wanting to extend their COEs and also want to extend their visas in the coming times.
So yeah, extending your COE is required if you are aware for one or a few reasons that you may not be able to complete your program before your COE or your visa expires. Okay, and the common reasons for why students may need to extend their COE may be, as we said, academic difficulties like failing a course, or it might be related to issues that are going on, compassionate or compelling reasons, right? Things that have caused them to be impacted, and that would include COVID-19, issues. So you really do need to keep on top of the date that your visa expires and the date that your COE expires, and they are linked generally. So applying again for a new visa can only be done 3 months before, in the 3-month period before your current visa expires. But your COE is something, again, that may not be extended enough to reach the time that you complete your degree. So extending your COE, again, should be done in the term before you expect it to your visa to expire. Or if you have already left your COE too late and the expiry date's coming up, then you should apply potentially as soon as possible. But it is something to look at and keep on top of, because often students will come to the service. They may have had lots of things go on, taken leave or whatever else, and then are in a mad panic about what to do about their COE. So if you have any questions about that, you can always book in with the international advisors and the student support advisors. We're all under one umbrella now to ask any of those questions. And again, early intervention, get in early. If you foresee that there might be concerns about your progress in the degree, it's good to talk to someone early. that's probably my advice around COE and visas, because it is a very case by case basis. And it's good to check in with an advisor. They can, if you aren't able to access your email for some reason, or you're not aware of when your COE and visa expires, you should be able to access that through your Vivo account, your account that monitors when your visa expires. But again, any complications, that's another really good thing to check in with UNSW about.
Thank you so much, Bridey, for that answer. And also, as a student representative, I also keep on receiving some queries related to studies, and what can be some of the useful resources which the students can keep in mind to contact the university related to several queries. You have already listed down some of them.
Yes.
Would you like to list down, like, what kind of query should be reported to what kind of platforms on the university, so that it can be solved as soon as possible for them?
Yeah. Okay. So that's a really good question, because there are lots of different services within the university and lots of different roles within each faculty and across the university more broadly. So if the questions that you are receiving are related to difficulties with the actual studying, so it might be your assignments, it might be referencing, it might be coming up with report planning, it might be all of those questions with the technical side of the work that you're doing. Maybe you're doing stuff that's unfamiliar to you. It would be good to reach out to the academic skills team. Okay, so they're called academic skills, and they provide one-on-one appointments to students. They're generally shorter, half an hour appointments, up to half an hour, and they can go through some of the work with you. Okay, so that's the academic skills side of things. Now, if you were struggling with things like time management, motivation, family, or concerns about family, or issues to do with your continuing in your program, perhaps you've got concerns about perfectionism, which is a big one with postgrad students. You're all such high achievers. Okay, any of those issues around concerning the kind of habits that we sometimes get into when we're under pressure, that would be really good to come talk to the student support service about. Now, administrative issues, things like your ID card, or things to do with, your graduation, any of the certificates, or anything that's going to be printed on paper that has anything to do with your degree, that's generally something that needs to be directed to the Nucleus Hub. Okay, so they are obviously the centre of the administrative services of the university. If it's questions around your fees or anything like that, then it would need to go to the fees team, which is, again, if you just Google UNSW fees, or you came to our website and typed in fees in the search bar, that would be best directed to fees. So then you've got questions around anything for international students. Again, that comes back to the student support service, because we're an umbrella team. We deal with both domestic and international students. So all of those questions. Anything to do with your program, this is a really important one. If, for example, you're taking a course and you're not sure what major what part is the major, and I'm not sure if this is so relevant for postgrad students, but if you're unsure about the electives or the subjects that you've got to choose, and there's some flexibility and you're feeling uncomfortable about what to do, you're most likely wanting to reach out to a program authority. Okay, the program authority is someone who sits within your faculty. Academic advisors, again, are also related to in your faculty, and they can give faculty specific advice. So that will be around, what is the subject that I'm taking, and am I taking the right subjects in the right term? So there's generally administrative supports, there's faculty supports, and then there's the supports around welfare. So the things that I've discussed around making sure that you're doing and coping okay. So I would say there's those three kinds of categories.
Sure. Yeah. I think that was really useful, Bridey, because a lot of people generally have got questions in this regard. Just got a question in the comment section here. by on Facebook Live, and his name is Baiduzuman Bodhi. Sorry for pronouncing your name in the wrong way. But the question is, could you please tell me the tax rate on a part-time scholarship? I'm planning to uh, switch part-time mode. There is no sign of opening the borders. I don't know whether this is the right question for Bridey, though.
Uh, quite honestly, I don't know. If it is a scholarship related to the university, it would be good to contact the scholarships team. Every question that is related to scholarships, they could answer by emailing their email address. If it's a scholarship that's to issued by your home country, I think you'd probably be best going back to the person that emails you generally about your scholarship. But yeah, I'm not. That's not really something I don't think I can help with, unfortunately, in terms of tax rates. I'm not too sure. Sorry about that.
Sure. So probably he can contact the scholarships team, UNSW scholarships team in this regard.
Yep, that's right. Yep.
Sure. Also moving to the next question, Bridey, which is related to program leave. It's also a very common query for students to understand what is the eligibility criteria for program leave for various students.
Yeah, so program leave is generally something that is approved on the basis that students might have something, there may be extenuating circumstances or something going on that means that they no longer feel that during the upcoming term that they should continue to study. It's, again, something I want to remind students that this can often be due to lots of personal things that are going on in their lives. And so the university recognises that there are times when students do need to take leave. There isn't, so it's important to note that the Student Support Service doesn't approve program leave applications. These are generally approved by your faculty, and they are obviously always approved in the best interests for the student, and they're looked at on a case-by-case basis by the faculty. So in terms of criteria, it's not really something that there's a strict criteria that you would need to apply by, but there does generally need to be a reason that you would provide to when you go into the portal to access program leave. And we have found that most of the time students have very legitimate reasons, and it would be unusual for a student to not be approved program leave. But yeah, it would be something that the faculty would be looking at. Yeah.
Sure. Also related to this fact of workload during these times. So this is also a very common question by the students, especially during these times when they're not able to manage well. Some of them might not be able to manage well their time and other stuff. So what can they do to manage their time and mental well-being at the same time?
Yeah. So thanks, Saurabh. That's a really important question, particularly in the place and time that we're in at the moment. So again, there is no one in the world right now who doesn't know that things have been becoming quite stressful, and that there are lots of competing priorities in our lives right now. And university can be something that can be causing some additional pressure. So what we really do recommend is that students do reach out either to the support service, our support service, or if it's particularly around balancing and juggling life's kind of competing responsibilities, it would be good to check in and talk to someone. That's always the first step, is to seek help. But on a more practical level, when we talk about managing time, it is something that many students come and say, hey, I've got an issue. I'm a chronic procrastinator. I don't ever get anything done at the time that I say I want to do it. And I also really struggle to keep my motivation. Or they might identify a number of, or a whole range of things that might be going on in their life, which makes complete sense as to why they're probably struggling to keep up with university work. What I want to really remind students of is the importance of really keeping healthy boundaries and being really conscious that at this point in time, there are going to be lots of pressures, and we need to do our very best to keep our expectations in check, because we are all going through a lot of change at this time, and trying to balance those really high expectations with the pressures can often mean that pressures become a bit overwhelming. So it is important that you come and talk to someone. Again, there are support services, particularly around mental health, and I will make a bigger point of this a little bit later, but there are many supports available that are also available to students who are offshore, including the Medibank support line. So I will get Saurabh to put some details up afterwards, but if you do need to access support that is 24 hours for offshore students, there is a support line that is available on the UNSW Psychology and Wellness website. That is to talk about if you're concerned about mental health, okay? But in terms of managing time and responsibilities, well, what do? A big question that students always raise is that I just don't feel I have time. And particularly as postgrad students, you might be finding the work is a little bit more intensive than what you experienced in undergrad. That's a really common experience. I think the best thing that we can do when we're feeling that there's too many priorities is to actually step back a little bit from what we're doing. We often start to feel that intensity of pressure build up, and then it kind of creeps into stress, and then it can sometimes creep into other more negative things where we're not feeling great. So getting in early and recognizing, hey, I'm not feeling too great about how I'm managing this course at the moment, and perhaps starting by writing out a broad list of the things that you feel that are important, that are priorities. And then also we do often at the service, that the student support service, talk about how do I create a schedule that respects me and the time that I have, and puts good boundaries around what I'm doing and when I should not be trying to attempt doing uni work. So a big problem is students let uni work creep into all areas of their life, and then that's when things become overwhelming. So we do need to keep really healthy boundaries. I'm sure that if anyone joined us for the last talk that you did, Saurabh, with the wellbeing officer, wellbeing health advisor, Roshin, yeah. So talking about wellbeing and the importance of taking care of your mental health, the number one thing we can do is start to be really cautious of boundaries. Yeah. When we start to let everything bleed into university work and everything is about university, it will start to become really high pressure. So we need to have a good schedule with some things that I call non-negotiables. The real basics. If you're going to be realistic about your time, you want to put in the real basics, which include really healthy sleeping routine, where you're getting consistent sleep and allowing yourself to wind down of a night time and going to bed at a consistent time. Another non-negotiable, what goes out the window when we're highly stressed and under pressure? We stop eating, or we replace our meals with coffee, energy drinks, or we eat too much, or we go through a whole day where we haven't even touched our food. So making sure that we are putting good time aside to sit, prepare meals and eat them. And then the third thing, which is important and must be done every day, and we do it anyway, is putting a time aside to do things that are meaningful, that bring us purpose and that are joyful, that create joy in our lives, right? And often we don't do this. We do it anyway. We gravitate towards watching things on our phone or computer, or, spending time talking to friends. What would be a healthy way of managing your time is to recognize that there are times in the day that are good to do uni work, and then there is definitely times that should be set aside for your personal well-being. So starting a schedule, whether you do that on a Google Doc or in your Google Calendar, or I really do recommend going back to as simple as paper and pen. The amount of students that come to me and say, I haven't even taken that step. I don't even look at my time anymore. I don't manage my time like I used to. That's because they've stopped doing the real basic things. So we do need to go back to basics. That was the whole premise of this chat, is coming back to what are the simple things that I can do to simplify some of the complexities that are going on in my life. And that is sometimes you do in reflection and support with someone else. So that's what our service is here to help you with, to get some of these competing priorities back in check.
Great. That's absolutely great, Bridey. And while you were talking about, I was just searching for the same episode, which you were also saying, that we had few weeks back with the UNSW Health Promotion Unit's Roisin trainer, and I've already posted the link. So if anybody who missed to watch the session on mental health and well-being, you can again go to our YouTube channel and watch that episode where Roisin trainer talked about how you can better take care of your mental health and well-being during COVID-19 and what can be the different ways of managing your time in addition to what Bridey just told you. Maybe to sum up, before I pass it on to Chungung to have any questions, if you want to just sum up whatever we have discussed in this session for those people who might have joined us late on Facebook Live, some of the key insights that they can take away from this session.
Yeah. Okay. So some key insights are that, one, the university understands that there is a lot of uncertainty at this time and there are lots of supports available. Sometimes you may send an email and not know whether it's been heard or received. That's a really common thing that students are saying. We do want you to know that those emails and web forms are being received, but just because of the nature of the situation with the pandemic, some of these things will take some time to get answered to, but we can reassure you that there is a virtual queue for the student support service. If you want to join that, you will get to speak to someone. That queue runs from 1 to 4 p.m. every day, where you can ask some questions around your program or, basically any of the supports that you're unsure of. But remember that if there are faculty questions, sometimes they do take a little longer, and it's not because they haven't been received, but that the university will answer those questions once, and if it can get to you, it will do that as soon as they can. But there are other ways to talk to us through the virtual queue at the nucleus. There will be teams from your faculties that you can speak to. So there are people available if you're unsure of what questions or you've got some queries about what's going on. The other thing that we spoke about was important dates, making sure they're in your phone, they're in your calendars, and you're aware that there are days where you can decide what you're doing with your program. That's always important. And then the third point that we brought up about the different services. There are administrative, there are support services, and there's also academic skills support services that are here to help you. And we're all working as a team. We all try to integrate and know what's going on where we can. So there are plenty of supports available to talk to people if you need to. But definitely, if you've got any questions, that you're more than welcome to come and join the virtual queue and ask those questions. And if we're not the right service, sometimes we're not, we will try to make sure that we connect you in with the right service.
Sure, definitely. And I think during these times, university is also providing some financial grants to the students. So if anybody has missed to apply for the financial grant, which the university is currently providing, don't miss to apply for that as well.
That's
If you're
correct.
facing any financial problems. Yep. And do you have any questions, Chenggung?
Yes. Yes. Okay. So, okay. Yes. In terms of like you study loan, I think it's a course. Like I joined another waiting list, and I already enrolled for 2 units, 2 courses, and another courses. I'm on the waiting list, and I really apply for you study loans in this one, and okay, and another things, and I'm willing to back to campus as well, and yeah, so that and also another course that I miss opportunity like banking and finance is the choose in like in persons. So what can I do in this one? Thank you, sir.
That's okay. So Cheng Hoi, are you in Australia or offshore at the moment?
Okay, I'm a student from Cambodia. from Penn City. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've got quite a few specific questions there. And I'll try to remember them if I can. The one about applying for a reduced study load, but being on a waiting list. So if you have to reduce your study load due to not being able to enroll in classes because they are full, then likely you will be able to get a positive result from your reduced study load application, okay? If the reason is for not being able to enroll due to full classes. So if that's obviously not your fault that the classes are full. If you apply for reduced study load, then it's unlikely that it wouldn't be approved. But again, for certain reduced study load applications, they may get reviewed by faculty to see what needs to happen. Your other question about returning to Australia, was that regarding that you're interested to know when students may be able to return?
Yeah, sure. Hopefully, I will be get one term only for my LLM. Yes, really nice for that. Because yes, one thing I really great before COVID-19 that I enrolled for UNSW in 2019. Yeah, and then this time I applied for LLM by research and I was not qualified for that program. However, I would recommend anyone to apply for LLM by coursework if you're not qualified for LLM by research, and it would be really nice. It would be save more time for that. Like me, I didn't apply for LLM by coursework, so it really upsetting for me. So I would recommend another overseas student to join LLM by coursework if you're not qualified for LLM by research. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. So was there a question there?
Yes, I'll see. Yeah, I just all ask my question, and I just would like to share for another student. Yeah, like I have not any LLM alumni for Cambodian student at UNSW, but I would like to. Yes, and now I get some question from another juniors from Cambodia. I recommend them for UNSW Law School. That I told them that it's the prestigious university and LLM law school. So I recommend to join to be my junior at UNSW. Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chenjoy. Okay.
I would like to share one more thing. Yes, UNSW have another service like smart things. Really nice for that. For example, if any student has some question or not sure about the assessment, so is have problem with writings or need someone to make the correction on that. So I recommend for SmartSync. It's the best. I think it's the best experience for me to learn with at UNSW, and we have for the teams we provide the feedback very quickly. Yes, so really nice helpful for UNSW students. Thank you. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Chen Hui. Okay, Saurabh, so was there any other questions from Facebook Live?
I'm just checking that, but thank you so much, Chengwin. This podcast, when we came up with this podcast for the first time in May, it was not only about calling a speaker and the speaker is speaking all the time. It was, in fact, the students coming to this podcast, sharing their insights, asking their questions. So that was really great that you shared some tips from your experience to other students that they can use smart thinking and all those things which were useful to you. So I think other students who might not be using it will have this takeaway from this session. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your participation. And I also expect that you participate in our future podcasts as well and share this with your other friends as well if they want to come, because I'm sure that this is a very useful initiative. And if we can reach out to more people, it will be great for them. As of now, I don't have any questions coming, but probably if you can touch base upon, you have already touched base upon the time management part, but in general, what do you think the social life and university now, obviously you don't have that social life, but in general, what do you suggest can be the different ways of managing your social and university life at the same time? And after that, we'll definitely end this podcast.
Yeah, so look, I recognize that most people currently in Sydney are in lockdown. And also, I'm sure that there are plenty of students that are not in Sydney who are also experiencing lockdown. And it can be a fairly difficult time. It can be quite isolating. And so in terms of social life, I'm not sure if we've got the exciting social life that we would all hope we do. But it's just good to remember that we're all experiencing this lockdown together, and that, generally when it comes to managing social life, we have problems with students. They've got too much stuff going on. But it can also be the opposite way. When we don't have things going on, we can start to feel the impacts of that. And, it can be isolating sometimes. So it is important to make sure that you're still connecting with, whether it's with family or the peers that are in your course. Do not ever be, afraid to reach out to your tutor from your course to say, look, it would be good for us to be able to engage with each other a little bit better. Is there some group that we could start, or some way that we could connect with one another? That's really important, that we're connecting. It's the same for us in our support service. We're all working separate from each other, but we need to find ways to connect. So it's important that you either reach out to friends or family or other people in the course. They're all going through the same things that you are, and they probably are wanting people to talk to as well about what's going on in this course, or maybe I'm confused. So keep reaching out. And if you're not sure in terms of the people that are doing the degree with you, your tutors or your course coordinators, the people that organise the class, may be able to assist in trying to get you guys to connect with one another to make things a little bit easier. Also, ARC, of course, you guys have massive amounts of online things going on to support students through this time. So don't forget that there are virtual things that you can join. I've seen some fantastic creative things going on. There's ways to stay connected, but make sure that obviously you do it in a way that you feel comfortable, and that you're able to talk to people about how to juggle these things whilst this pandemic's going on. So I think connection is key. Connection is really the key to good learning, because if we're feeling disconnected, then we start to pick up negative habits that get in the way of our study. So there are a number of supports. Just go to either the ARC website or the UNSW Student Support website. And of course, if you are seeking mental health supports, that there are a number of support lines that are available, as well as if you go to the UNSW Psychology and Wellness site, there are supports there for people offshore as well.
Sure. Thank you so much, Bridey. And also, if you want to reach out to any of your student representatives on the Postgraduate Council or Student Representative Council, you can reach out to us at any point of time. Even in the Postgraduate Council, we have been organizing several events, such as the Opportunities Australia Mentorship Conclave in the month of June. In the month of July as well, you can see we have organized several podcast sessions, as well as today in the morning, we organized a session on academic writing, how you can improve your academic writing. So different kind of events we are organizing. And in the coming months as well, in the next 1 or 2 months also, we will be coming up with some more mentorship programs, which will help you to understand how you can actually increase your opportunities of getting employed. In fact, the next podcast session that we have will be on the fact of opportunities provided by Opportunities Australia. That is a company which provides opportunities to various young people who are either unemployed or looking for various job opportunities. And also we are having some sessions on how you can increase your chances of getting employed, what can be the future of work. So would be looking forward if you have any other ideas or suggestions or any problems that you are facing on which you would like us to have a session, would be great to have that. But as of now, I think my clock tells me that it's time to end this podcast, unfortunately. And with this, we essentially come to an end to this 11th PGC Weekly Podcast. And we would like to thank Bridey for taking her valuable time today to join us for this podcast. And also everyone who has joined us on Zoom, Changuing, and all the people who commented and were viewing this session through Facebook Live or will be listening to this on YouTube. We hope to see you all in the next podcast as well, which is on opportunities for jobs and also We have got the next podcast on 13th, which is on the topic of future of work, and also several other mentorship programs. So we hope to see you all in all those events, which we are running for your benefit. But for now, it's goodbye from my side. Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah and Bridey. Thank you for joining.
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Bye.